Well, hello there and welcome to another training nugget. In this video, I'll be showing you on how to configure databases in XAMPP. So let's get started. Well, the first thing you'll want to do is to launch your XAMPP control panel by pressing the Start menu and finding your installation. I've already installed it, and so just click to open. And on the control panel that shows up, I'll want to make sure that Apache is running. It's already running. I also want to make sure MySQL is running. Our interest is the databases, and by default, databases are in the SQL section. The simplest way to navigate into the database section is by clicking into the admin section under the MySQL. I'll click on admin and it will pop up on my browser. Take note the URL is localhost/phpMyAdmin. You can also navigate to this same page by just navigating directly onto your browser URL and typing in the localhost/phpMyAdmin. If you're familiar with this interface, this is my local server 127.0.0, which represents technically the local host and of course the number of databases that are already in existence. What we'll want to do is to see how do you create a database, how do you link that to a user, and how do you manipulate tables in there. If you have knowledge in SQL query language, then that will even be easy for you. However, this interface simplifies by giving you the ability to click and what you see is what you get. I'll click on the account section so that I can see what accounts I have already in my database area. I happen to have all these accounts that have been set up, and some of them have a password like this. There's a password. The rest do not have a password. So to create a new account, I just scroll down and select Add User Account. When I click Add the user account, I'll be required to enter the name of the user account. I don't want that to be test. I've already done a test database. So I'll do a user and maybe say test user 1. The host is definitely localhost 100%, accessing every other area within this database. And I'll leave the percentage so that it's very open and not limited to just one section of my data. I'll then enter in a password. I can also generate a password just to get a very strong password that can protect my database. I'll copy that and keep it safe. And once I am done, I will scroll down. There's an option for creating database for the user, which I will not be doing that right now because we'll be setting this manually. And so for that, we'll just leave everything as default and click go. Once you're done with go, you realize that now we have created a user known as test user 1, who is identified by MySQL native password. Using what we have done, it has access to the whole user aspect or the whole database system, and now we can create a database for this user. Now, if I want to create a database option, I can navigate into the database section. Someone is wondering why I'm using the longest route ever. So these are the databases that I already have here. I have a test database, a phpMyAdmin. I want to create a database known as test user 1. So the very simplest way of doing it is to navigate into the database name here on the create user or create database section. I will select test user or test database 1. You may want to change this section of the C code item to fit in the scripts that you're using or integrating into your system. But for now, I'll just leave it as the UTF-8 and before the general CI. I'll then click on create and voila, my database has just been created. And here we go. And by default, phpMyAdmin logs me into the database and requires me to do a table. I can create a table by naming the table and defining the number of columns based on the number of items I'd like it to hold for me. I can also navigate into the SQL section and select the Create SQL option. For example, we want to create a table. So you can tell here I am already inside the database. So it is test database 1. So I can do my query to create table. Well, if that doesn't make sense to you, let's go back to what you see is what you get. So I can create a table, name a table, maybe a test table, define the number of columns, and click create. But you realize that I have not associated this database to any user. So the one thing I want to do is to associate this database, test database 1, with user or test user 1, who we had already created earlier. So to give access to a specific user account to this database, I'll navigate into the user account section. Then I'll navigate into the user that I'd like to associate with this database by selecting that test user 1. And I want to associate with this database and give all these privileges from data, structure, administration, resource limit, etc. So I'll click on database option. And then from this section, I can tell that this user does not have any table or any database associated with them. I will select test database 1 and select go to associate. And now I'll be required to, and as you can tell, that the edit privileges for user test 1 user has access to database or database 1. I'll select check all to make sure that all the privileges are granted from the select insert for the queries and also for the structure and for administration. Once that is done, I'll click on go and voila. I have just added user account test 1 as a user with access to test database 1. So I'll navigate into test database 1 and navigate to privileges, and you can tell that my test user has now privilege to access this database. Pretty cool, huh? Well, that is how we work with databases within XAMPP. I hope you enjoyed. And if you like this video, press on the subscribe button and I'll see you in the next nugget.